Hey, what's up guys and gals? Coach Colton Nichols here, and today in our video we'll be discussing the 4 stages of skill acquisition. I got them written out here. Our first stage is going to be unconscious incompetence. Then we move into conscious incompetence, conscious competence, unconscious competence. Okay, and I'll explain this and give an example about how all these things kind of play into each other and how it kind of flows into the next thing and how we just use these 4 stages to constantly build and add progressions and make athletes better. Okay, so first things first, unconscious incompetence. That is where our athlete has no idea what they're doing. They have no idea how to do the movement. They're possibly a little bit apprehensive to do it because they're afraid of looking foolish in front of other peers. So a lot of the time, that is where we're going to spend most of our time, because that's where we have to really, that's where the art of coaching comes in, and getting these kids to start doing the things that we need them to do, or these athletes. And that is why we have written here, understanding the why and how speeds up the process. So when we're in our unconscious incompetence stage, teaching our athletes why and how they're doing it really helps to boost their confidence, and the more they do it, the better they'll get. So that's what we're really trying, just to get them to move with intent. A lot of times, if they already might feel like they can't do it, so in their head, they've already decided they can't do that move, so when they're doing it, they're already giving you a half-hearted effort, and if you're doing that, you're just not going to get better. We need to do things with intent and an actual mindset to get better. So that's also why presentation is key. The way we present it to these athletes, make sure they don't feel embarrassed that we're singling them out. Maybe they can't perform the move while other kids in their group are getting it, and that can be very discouraging, really lower their confidence. So the way we present it is very important. And like I said, I'll give an example of this and how it all makes sense and ties into each other. So conscious incompetence, that is where they still don't know how to do the move at all, but at least they're trying it and building confidence in it and just learning proprioception and where their body is in space and how to move. So naturally, if we can get them to that stage, they're just going to be getting better because at least they're trying it with confidence and the intent to get better. And from there, we move into conscious competence. So all that means is that they can do the move, but they have to think their way through the entire thing. And that can honestly be pretty exhausting for an athlete to have to do that for every single move. But it's part of the process and it drives improvement. So it's just the next stage. And then finally, we get to where we are, unconscious competence. That is where we can start adding progressions. These athletes can now do this movement without having to think their way through it. And that doesn't mean they don't think. It just means that instead of having to think about every fine detail, they only have to think about the big important pieces like neutral spine, constant tension through the body, all those great things, okay? So with that being said, a good example, starting from the scratch, we got a group. So let's say we're taking 5 athletes, we got a group, small group training. Okay, let's say they're all at this unconscious incompetence, but maybe, actually, let's just say one kid is just, he really has no idea how to do the movement. He's just not a good mover. This happens all the time. Maybe just 1 or 2 kids in the group. But the problem is that they see the other 4 or 3 kids are able to do it. So now they don't want to look stupid or foolish in front, and like they can't do the move in front of their peers because that's just embarrassing for them. So that's why we say the presentation is key. We don't want to single out that athlete and make them feel more embarrassed than they already are. We got to explain to them that it's okay, that just the fact of trying the move, they're going to get better and their body's going to adapt. And if we can teach them the why and how, in their brain, it'll kind of speed up the process. They won't get so down on themselves. And when we start to build their confidence, and at least they're trying it, we know that we're driving towards adaptation. And this is where the art of coaching comes in. You have to know your athletes. You got to know whether they respond well to internal versus external cues, what kind of motivation they like, all that good stuff, and that's the art of coaching. So getting to know your athletes is step 1, and this is probably where we're going to have the most work, unconscious incompetence. It makes sense. This is the beginning of the training. This is where they're completely fresh. We got blank slate type athletes where we can really mold them, and that's why we present it the right way, so we can follow this model and keep it going in a good progressive order. Also, having the right regressions is key. So don't make these athletes feel like they're doing absolutely nothing. Make sure that your regression still gets the point done, but it's also getting them better to do the movement that we're actually trying. So regressions are also key. Then we'll move into our conscious incompetence, and that means that our athlete doesn't know how to do it still, but they're trying, and they're trying it with more confidence, and they're not having a self-defeating attitude towards it, and they're actually trying to get better. And as we all know, As long as our athletes are trying it and making a conscious effort to get better, their body will adapt, and they'll get better proprioception, they'll learn better where their body is in space, how to move, and they'll just be getting better. And that's key. That just keeps driving this skill acquisition until we get to the point of conscious competence, which is where our athlete knows the movement and how to do it, but they have to think the entire way through. So if an athlete has to do that for every single movement in a training session, that can be extremely exhausting to their brain. So we want to try to kind of get through this stage as much as possible. Try not to throw too many new movements at athletes, because like I said, if they're having to think through every single part of every single exercise because you've thrown so many new ones at them, it's just we're gonna be getting diminishing returns. These athletes are just gonna be worn out by the time they're halfway through a workout, and it just won't be good. Technique will start to falter, and they just won't be able to think their way through. So just make sure you're not throwing too many new moves at people, at your athletes, and that'll help also improvement. Lastly, we move into unconscious competence, and that's the best part. That's when our athlete can do the movement without even having to think. I say without having to think, but that's not true. They think about the big points, like I said, neutral spine, engaging in the proper muscles, having the right torque, all those good things in the movement. But they don't have to think about the arbitrary, silly things that, like where our feet is, where my hands are, is my neck back, are my shoulders back, is my knees in the right place? Okay, you don't have to think about all those things. All they can think about is the big key points and doing the movement correctly. And that is where we can start adding more progressions, maybe introducing them to a new movement, where we're back up to here, and we start the cycle all over again. This is a constant cycle where we'll constantly be adding new progressions, and they will not be able to do them, and we'll keep moving right through this, and that's how athletes continue to get better. So just a few key points. Just remember, very, very important art of coaching, why and how. How our athletes are doing this, and that will speed up the process. Also presenting it to the athletes in a proper way that will make them feel not embarrassed and actually help build their confidence rather than just break them down, okay? So with that being said, I hope you guys can use this model when teaching all kinds of new activities, whether it's in the weight room, whether it's in your chosen sport, and let me know if you have any questions.